The Ollive Pro, do they really make you hear better? Let's find out. So I got the Ollive Pro on Indiegogo during their campaign and wanted to do a quick review to go over the pros and cons of the devices and give you better information as to whether or not it's something that you might be interested in buying. Just to go through things on the pro sites first, I'm going to start out with these. These are the earbud tips that you get. And you essentially get 5 different sizes in total, the ones that are on the device as well as these. Did manage to find ones that fit, and like most people, my ears are a little bit different size on each side. So that worked out really well. Another thing is that their app looks pretty sleek. It does have a lot of potential. It has a bunch of features to it, and it's something that I see in the future as working possibly well. At this point, it's on the shaky end, but basically, when you take a look at everything that it has to offer and the changes and adjustments that you can make to the devices, that's definitely a pro. Another thing is, unlike some of the other competition like New Hera, for example, the case and the actual units themselves are pretty decently sized. These are about the same size as an AirPod Pro and a little bit bigger, but it is a decent size. However, the case, in my opinion, the quality, kind of the fit and finish of it is it's okay. It's not spectacular. It's one of those things that I would say it's not on par with Apple and the AirPods Pro, but it is much better than some of the cases that I've seen out there. So, and of course, they don't stick out of your ears like the new Heroes do. So they have that going for them. Another thing is that it's a device that's bringing things a step closer to the hearables market. Uh, since the Hearing Aid Act, the Direct to Consumer Hearing Aid Act, was passed, there hasn't been a lot of momentum. We've had COVID, we've had other things that have kind of gotten in the way, but this is a step forward as far as technology is concerned, and it's one of the devices that's going to help bring down the cost of hearable technology and make it more adaptable to people of all socioeconomic statuses. So that's definitely a pro. That's one thing that you could say is good about them. Another thing, and this is just personal, is that they are made in Vietnam. Most devices, including the AirPods Pro, are made in China. I have a soft spot for Vietnam. That's where my wife is from. And the Vietnamese people are very, very meticulous in everything that they do. They take a lot of pride in their work and their craftsmanship. So that is something that they do have going for them. I think that the limitations would probably be the componentry, if anything. But you're going to have less defective units, I believe, based off of it's not going to be QC issues based off of the people that are making them. But that's just a personal opinion. Now, let's jump into the cons. First and foremost, the elephant in the room is this: the sound quality is abysmal. And that's not only for the hearing aid portion, that's for the audio portion as far as the earbuds are concerned, whether you're listening to music, streaming a podcast, listening to the TV, whatnot. With them, it's just horrible. It's inexplicable, other than it has a very, very tinny sound to it. It's very artificial. And if you go, there's a link in the description and if you go to it, the Indiegogo project, and you actually look at the comments on there, you're going to see what I'm talking about. This is not just me saying this. This is a majority of the people that have purchased these. They all say the same thing. Audio quality is tinny. I've spent all this time and still can't get them to sound right. I'm one of those people. I did the hearing test 5 times. I went through and played around with the EQ settings, and I could not dial them into the quote unquote sweet spot to make them worthwhile to wear on a continuous basis. So the audio quality is horrible. And this is really based off of the hearing test itself. And I'm going to get into that here in a minute. But the hearing test is by far the worst hearing test I've taken out of any hearing test that is, directly on a device and not through an audiologist. It just does not come up to snuff compared to everything else that I've tested and that I've tried. And I've looked at everything from built-in apps to devices to apps like Mimi. And I've even done comparisons with Mimi to my audiology audiogram, and they were very similar. This is completely off the mark. Also, with that said, when you're dealing with a device like this, your target market is typically going to be a little bit older. Most of the people with hearing loss issues are up there in age, so they're not going to be as tech savvy. They're not going to be able to use the EQ in the same way that somebody that's younger might be able to. And let's face it, those of us that have had hearing loss for a large portion of our lives are not really audiophiles, so we don't sit there and just dial in the perfect EQ for the sound of music. We know that it's not going to sound perfect to us, and we kind of accept that fact, so we adjust it a little bit, maybe increase the bass volume if we have low-end hearing, or increase the treble if we have high-end hearing loss. But for your average person, it's just a bit too much. It's just something that they're not going to relate to in a way that makes it truly functional. One of the most aggravating things about it to me is the Bluetooth just doesn't work well at all. I have 3 different pairs of AirPods Pro. I have another pair of AirPods. I have aftershocks. I have 2 pairs of over-the-ear earmuff style Bluetooth headphones. And I have a plethora of other Bluetooth devices. I have a ton of them. I've been into Bluetooth since 1999 when the Ericsson HBH10 Bluetooth headset first came out. It was the first one in the world, and I had to special order it from Europe. So I have a lot of experience with Bluetooth technology, and this is one that just really falls short. Sometimes both of the headphones will basically just disconnect. Sometimes one will just disconnect and reconnect, and I can have the phone sitting right in front of me when this happens. So it's not a distance issue. And certainly if you do walk away and there's any form of obstruction, I can go from the couch to the kitchen, which is 15 feet, and if the countertop's in the way, it creates a barrier for the signal. So the signal on them is very, very weak. On top of that, the Bluetooth, how it connects in initially when you pull them out of the case, and I believe that the case is involved with this, it doesn't connect into the app very well. Sometimes it connects, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to sit there and go through a few steps on the app to get it connected. Other times you have to put the devices back into the case, wait, shut off the app, wait a few seconds, and then pull them back out, put them back in your ears, turn the app back on, and then hopefully it'll work. Also, when you're switching in between apps on the phone and you go back to make an adjustment to the earbuds, a lot of times it's disconnected. So you have to go through that same process again and again. And what this does is it really makes me feel like a beta tester. And that's another thing that I'm going to get into here in just a moment. The next thing is noise cancellation. It comes on in the weirdest times, and it's not something that can really be programmed. For example, if you're driving along and you're listening to the GPS to get directions and somebody else is in the car talking to you, when a turn is coming up and the GPS wants to notify you, it actually turns them into noise isolation mode for a second, gives you the directions, and then comes back out of it. And that might be good for somebody, who prefers it that way, but not for me. Also, when you receive a phone call, it automatically goes into noise cancellation mode. And there's no real way to get it out that I've discovered while you're on the call. So basically, all other background noise is eliminated. And there are times when I do turn on noise cancellation of my AirPods Pro when I'm on a phone call, but that's very rare. And that's just to black out certain noises, that are very high decibel, so that I can understand what's being said. But for that to happen every single time you get on a call, it is just a poor execution. You should be able to have the capability of choosing whether or not that's something that you want to do. They do have, this is one question I get on all hearing devices that I review. Do they have an occlusion effect? Yes, definitively they do. You literally, hear an echo of your own voice, and you hear your voice inside your head at the same time that you're talking and hearing it come through the mics. So it's very frustrating. And that's something that should be dialed in at this point. Other hearable technologies don't have that issue. So that's one thing, if I was Ollive, I'd be working on at this point. Battery life is another issue. We all know that manufacturers make claims about battery life. Oh, it's going to be this, and it falls a little bit short of that. But Ollive basically says you're going to get 7 hours. And I have tested it for maybe 4 hours total that I was wearing them. It was a situation where I wasn't using any streaming at all, just using them as a hearing aid technology. And when I got back and decided to put them into the case, I looked at the app and I had 20 some odd percent left. So it's guaranteed that it wouldn't go the 7 hours. On top of that, I don't think that the case holds enough juice for it to go the full 19 hours or what they've said that it'll go. It's just not possible. One thing that I noticed is, out of aggravation, I just sat them to the side, didn't touch them. And I'll put this up here on the screen, but literally, after sitting for just a few days, the earbuds lost battery life. Now, if there's a built-in battery to the case and the batteries on the earbuds themselves were fully charged, everything was fully charged, that shouldn't happen just sitting there doing nothing. So that is a point of aggravation. Now, finally, at least for this video, customer service. The customer service wasn't really that great. I felt like they redirected their issues onto the user just a bit, as opposed to taking full responsibility for what has gone wrong with these. I had asked them a few questions with regards to the hearing test and said, quite honestly, that it was horrible and it didn't work, and what they were going to do to fix that. And then also asked them if there was a possibility in the future that they would allow you to import an audiogram from another app such as Mimi in order to get them dialed in better. And the response I got was fairly interesting. They said the hearing test algorithm was developed and modeled to closely reflect the same type of devices used by professionals. I don't see that. It tries to find the right balance between desired loudness, good audiability, and comfort, sound comfort for every patient. It seems that for a number of people, hence the majority, the sound comfort is a bit too aggressive. By sound comfort, what they mean is their hearing test is so incredibly quiet that they call it aggressive. Uh, and it creates settings that don't provide enough of a boost on both an audiogram and psychoacoustic level. Well, yeah, that's true. They don't, because it's a horrible test. It is so incredibly quiet. Now, keep in mind, I did this 5 times. I changed environments. I waited for the HVAC to turn off in the house just so that I could have the lowest decibel point possible to conduct the test. And it was a result of it being so incredibly quiet that I couldn't get a proper test done. Other tests, will raise and lower volumes to see where your thresholds are. With this, it didn't do it. Flat out didn't do it. They go on to say the team is aware of this, however, and are actually working on both of the suggestions you listed. They are working on improving the hearing test and the ability to upload your own audiogram. Is something on the OTA update list as well. Our goals are Q4 2021 for these updates, but I don't have a specific timeline just yet. So here I am as a user. I've purchased these and received them, and they basically told me, we'll get around to it in Q4 maybe, but we don't have a specific time frame yet. Now, I work in software, so I understand that. You can't say we're going to have it launched by this specific day because you'll inevitably run into issues. But these are just a paperweight to me until then. And as such, I can't recommend these to people. Maybe if you have a very, very mild hearing loss, this might be something that would be worthwhile for you. If you needed something that was going to kind of help boost, very minute levels. If you have anything beyond a mild hearing loss, these are probably not for you. Could they be in the future? I don't know. They might do some things with programming and firmware updates that change and resolve all the issues that I've talked about. But at this particular point, I would not recommend these at all. They're just not worth it. And I would wait to see that customer satisfaction change before making that decision. Again, I'm going to put a link to the Indiegogo campaign in the description below. Please take the time, if you're considering purchasing these, to go through and read the comments. You're going to find that a majority of people are very dissatisfied. People wanted their money back. Unfortunately, it's an Indiegogo campaign and it doesn't work that way. But as a company, I think that they were irresponsible in launching this product, and they're giving hearables somewhat of a bad name because they launched it too prematurely. They didn't have the product fully baked before they put it on the market. And to me, that's a problem. And it's not as though they said, oh gosh, we realized we made some mistakes, we're going to pull back. They actually, it's on their website. They're selling it on their website. They're selling it on Amazon as well. So they're not stopping. And, from an ethics perspective, I think that's wrong. Anyways, that's all I have for the Ollive Pro at this point. I will be doing an update video when they go through and release firmware updates and software updates. that hopefully change things. I'll let you know whether or not it does. Until then, stay away from them. Any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.